Listen. Let me take the graphic down, man. Listen. Stephen A. Smith, man. I don't even know where to start with him, man.
Yeah, I be trying to like him, but then
I try, but he makes it hard, man. Listen, all right. He makes it hard. Let's just go right in. Look, all right. Stephen A. Smith is back in a new cycle, right? Once again, he always seems to find himself in the middle of drama. You know what I mean? I feel like it's more and more now that Shannon Sharp had the little controversy with Cat on the show, but Stephen A. always finds himself in a new cycle with beef with some dudes. The latest war words is with Draymond Green, Golden State Warrior center, future Hall of Famer, in my belief, 4-time champion. And also he's beefing with NBA legend, like I said in the beginning, Isaiah Thomas. Now, why, you ask? I'm going to tell you why. Because Stephen A. Smith is a fraud. Okay? I repeat that. Stephen A. Smith is a fraud. Shout out to Max Kellerman. Max Kellerman has exposed them 1,000 times. We all know what Terrell Owens said, you know what I'm saying, that Max Kellerman is blacker than you. He said, damn, man, Max Kellerman be acting blacker than you. And this is from T.O. You feel me? One of the greatest wide receivers ever, man, in top three.
Word up.
And I concur with that, man. Listen, all right, so in the latest nonsense, right? Stephen A. and Draymond Green had a bunch of words, man. I'm gonna play a clip from the Big Podcast with Shaq, and this is Draymond Green explaining his problem with Stephen A. Smith. We'll come back and comment on that, and then we'll talk about Isaiah's problem with him, and then we'll talk about my problem with him. But here goes Draymond Green, like I said, on the Shaq Podcast. Really good podcast. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out or listen to this.
Stephen A. Smith really pissed me off. And the reason he pissed me off was because he hit me. He's like, yo, it's been hard for a lot of us to talk about you these last few days. For me, I'm like, it's been hard for me to watch. I'm watching it because I want to see everything that everybody has to say. You tell me it's been hard for y'all to talk about me. Stephen A., anytime I meet someone and they say something about you, it's never like, yo, I like him. He cool. It's always like, man, that dude, he a character, he's this, he's that. And I always say back, I actually know the guy. The guy is actually a cool dude. You can take what you want from the TV screen. I actually know the guy. He's a cool dude and a real dude. And then you get the opportunity to talk about me. And listen, I know you got a job to do. I know you got to do your thing and say what you got to say. But at not one point did you say, well, y'all are saying this person is up and this person need help. Now, I know the person. Say what you want about the basketball player, that's fine. But I know the person. But to sit back and see those that claim to know and appreciate me as a human being just flow with the narrative because it was Stephen A. Smith really pissed me off. And the reason he pissed me off was because.
So that's Draymond Green on the Big Podcast with Shaquille O'Neal, Hall of Fame. The most dominant big man ever played a position. Here's the thing. Stephen A. went on to, he had responded on the show. He had said he's always defended Draymond Green and Draymond Green's cat, and the one time, all these years he's defended Draymond Green, and the one time, he has to call Draymond to the carpet, Draymond wants to act up. Now, I'm going to come to the defense of Stephen A. slightly before I smoke him. Draymond, and I like Draymond Green, don't get me wrong, but Draymond was wilding last year. Let's keep it a buck. Draymond was wilding. The shit on Nurkic, shit on Nurkic, and choking out Rudy Gobert. Yo, he was Draymond.
He punched Jordan Poole in the face.
Yo, Draymond, I fuck with you, brother. You was doing too much last year, my dude. You was doing too much. You know it. Everybody know it. You know what I'm saying? That don't mean you not nice. That don't mean you a bad dude, but you was doing too much. Now, but here's my thing with Stephen A., right? And then we'll get, matter of fact, let's talk about the Isaiah shit first before. Isaiah Thomas, right? So there was a clip on ESPN where they were, I think it was Jay Williams, Perk, and Stephen A. Smith, and they were saying, is Jaylen Brown from the Celtics underrated, right? In terms of, being a basketball player. This is what Stephen A. says. He says, this is a quote, and he said this is from a source he got. All of a sudden on air, he got the source. He said, it's not so much that he's underrated, it's that he's just not liked because of his I am better than you attitude, Smith stated. He added, he knows it. It's the same reason he is not as marketable as he should be, and that's what an ESPN source had told him. Now Isaiah Thomas, right now, I always thought Isaiah and what you call Stephen A was cool. Yeah, Stephen A. This is what Isaiah Thomas had to say. I have been a friend, mentor, and advisor to Jaylen Brown since he was a student at UC Berkeley. He is 100% marketable. And before you slander his name at Stephen A. Smith, tell your source to put their name on it or don't speak on it. Let it be known. And Jaylen Brown basically tweeted the same thing. Who's your source? Stephen A. goes on to say this. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to tie this all together in a second. I just want to give you some context, right? This is Stephen A.'s rebuttal. I have no idea what you're talking about, Isaiah Thomas. I've been a fan of Jaylen Brown for years. I still am. What's unfortunate is that you, who's known me for decades, would choose to go on X to express whatever dissent you feel instead of calling me directly. But I get it. It's a pattern several folks have used versus me recently. Suddenly forgetting communication we've always had. So be it. I root for JB always. He's a great dude. But the Celtics have to close the deal. Okay. Here's my take on Stephen A. Smith. Okay. Nobody fucking likes Stephen A. Smith. Let's just be honest. You know what I'm saying? One, it's annoying. Every time he gets on there, he goes, Jaylen Brown is my brother. He's my brother. I just want to say that. You can't hold the black man down. All of a sudden, he's talking about the black man. This one's his brother. That one's his brother. Where was all this shit when you was fucking condemning Kyrie Irving, bro? When you went on TV every fucking day, it felt like for 6-7 months, you know what I'm saying, during the whole vaccine thing, and belittled him and berated him and ran his name into the ground, man. All because Kyrie standing on business. You know what I'm saying? The man didn't want to take the vaccination. Now, whether you wanted, were you a pro or negative, you know what I'm saying, or against, I should say, that was his right as a human being, as an American citizen, not to have to take that, right? Stephen A. Smith would say things like, he's not a good teammate. He's selfish. If he was a good teammate, he'd take the vaccination so he can get back on the court so the Nets could win a championship. What kind of teammate is that? Because, you know, as we know, Eric Adams wouldn't let Kyrie play unless you had the vaccination. Amongst a lot of other people in that time in New York, people lost jobs. People went on strike. It was a whole fucking thing out here, right? That's one. So you went on your platform, which is a huge platform, and tried to shit on Kyrie every day. Kyrie was a year before he was eligible for an extension. Now, say what you want about Stephen A. Smith, but Stephen A. Smith words are powerful. You know what I'm saying? People listen to what he says. Even owners, GMs, public perception, that plays a part in everything. You know what I'm saying? You keep riding him. Maybe Kyrie don't get the. Thank God Mark Cuban had enough nuts to stand up and say, "Come over here." You know what I'm saying? Even though, you know, trading for him, Joe Tsai traded for him. But I say that to say this: we heard what he did with the Kaepernick shit. You know what I'm saying? Right in the middle of Kaepernick taking a knee, basically throwing his career away in the NFL to put a shine a light on police brutality. Again, at that time, a couple of years ago, there was a slew of police brutality, brothers dying. Now, that's been going on forever, but it was highly publicized, and it seemed to be coming back to back to back to back. Kaepernick decided, I'm not going to stand for the national anthem. I'm going to take a knee for what I believe in. I want to bring some light to police brutality, right? Threw his career away, basically, right? NFL basically blacklisted him, blackballed him, if you want to call it that. What does Stephen A. Smith do? He goes on the air, right, and says, if Kaepernick didn't vote. He goes on the air and goes, oh, I'm done with Colin Kaepernick. I'm not messing with Colin Kaepernick. It's disgusting how he didn't vote. How you gonna be? As far as I'm concerned, I want him to go away. I don't want to hear from him ever again. How you gonna not vote and then talk about black activism, black rights? He tried to throw cold water on what Kaepernick was doing. Ever since then, I lost all respect I have of Stephen A. Smith. You know what that told me? That he is a fucking ball boy, for the suits, up in ESPN and what their agenda is. You know what I'm saying? And for what basically the mainstream agenda is. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Kyrie. He stood in the square. We're not even going to get into the whole anti-Semitism thing. Just on those situations alone, the Isaiah Thomas, the Draymond Green. It's clear to me that these players don't really fuck with Stephen A. Smith. Listen, newsflash. Plus, don't fuck with Stephen A. Smith. I know he's from Queens. I know he's from Hollis. I went to Jamaica High School. He went to Edison, which is, if you know anything about Queens, they're literally right next to each other. You know what I'm saying? But we don't claim him. We don't fuck with him. What's your take on Corny A. Smith?
Man, at this point, it's getting hilarious, man. Like you really starting to see the entertainment side of what he's trying to do.
Facts.
It's almost like he goes home and tries to figure out another way just so that he can pop up on headlines. Like, what else can I talk about so that I can almost stay irrelevant? Irrelevant. I mean,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's not, it's not cool in any way, shape, or form. We don't like that in any way. We don't like that in a regular blue collar line of work, white collar line of work. We don't like that in rap. We don't like that in no type of music. We don't want nobody trying to be who they really are to try to get worn up. And it started getting egregious. It started getting egregious when all the ESPN started taking off, and then he's taking over here talking about how, like, ESPN can't lose him. He's the number one. He made the number one show, and he's been doing it for so long, and he's putting all these people on. But like, people with that type of character, their energy just doesn't sit well with you. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot. There's a lot of people in the world and in the industry that probably know him. You got to understand, man. These old people are in front of big lights, and they can only say certain things. But for these people to start now coming out of their face and now start, challenging him back, it almost makes me think of like, now more people are starting to get in tune to what everybody's been saying. Back then it was just the fans and the common people who just watched the show. And now it's just like, you calling these people your boys and your brothers? Why they talk to you this way? You sure? That's like me calling somebody my best friend and him beating the shit out of me 2 days later. Y'all sure y'all were boys, man? Like, y'all didn't look like it.
You can't bring anybody up on ESPN without him saying, I just want to say this. I've known this man for 3 decades. That is my brother. And I will never, ever try to. I don't want to hear nothing, Stephen. I don't want to hear nothing about the black man. You know what I'm saying? I'm black. I'm not Puerto Rican. I love my Puerto Ricans. I can speak for the black people because I am black. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hear nothing about the black man. You had a chance to uplift the black man in a very important time in our history, and you fronted 2 times. You know what I'm saying?
And you know why he did it? And you know why? And the reason he did it is because he probably knew that the damage and the fallout of it was going to affect his career. So you know what he did? Instead of helping, the black people out there in the world, he's thought for himself. Those are selfish thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to hear him talking about being a ball hog, whoever's a ball hog on the court, bro, because they're getting paid to be a ball hog and score 40 points. But you know what? They're gonna always score. They're always gonna stand on their own, man. Like, you standing on your own is just for you to just, you know what I mean, become higher level, becoming a different echelon, and separate yourself even more from the people that you say that you involve yourself with so much. You know what I mean? And one of the things, like, and my tipping point was for you for Kaepernick. Mine was the Kyrie, only so because, like, when he was really putting him down, granted, the situations is much more detrimental when you speak of Colin Kaepernick, because that's obviously a reason that people should have stood up for. But it just didn't make no sense for Kyrie because, bro, there's people who coming to play in the next stadium that weren't even vaccinated, and they're playing in New York.
That made no sense.
So, like, what the fuck? Like, and people don't put 2 and 2. That's like, that's segregation at its finest. Like, that made zero sense. You drink from the fountain and you could drink from the fresh water well. You know what I mean? No, that shit ain't cool. And for Kyrie to stand out there, I've always been a fan of Kyrie, but I've even become a bigger fan when I started seeing him become like, he was becoming like a man at that point. He was becoming into his true self. He was standing back on his thoughts and holding his ground. And
stood
that's
on
what
business.
It's supposed to be about.
Stood on business. And let me say this. I want to say this, man. I don't want to make this just about blacks, that because, you're from New York, my Dominican brothers, my Puerto Rican brothers, my West Indian brothers, you name it. We all have to deal with that police shit. It ain't only just black people. It ain't only just Spanish, Puerto Rican. We all one. I don't want to get into it, you know what I'm saying? But if you know anything about where you come from, you know that at the end of the day, we are all one. We're not going to get into that, you know what I'm saying? But listen, man, Stephen A. Smith, please go away, man. I know you're not, but go away. Nobody cares about what you have to say. Your takes are bullshit all the time. You do hot takes. Now you got Shannon, so you're staying hot. You knew what to do business-wise. You knew you had to go get Shannon because your shit was getting dry. You got Max out of there, you know what I'm saying? We've talked about that in the past, but I just don't fuck with Stephen A. Smith, and it's becoming more clear and more evident to me that these players don't really like Stephen A. Smith. You know what I'm saying? There was no reason for Draymond to flip on him. You know what I'm saying? Recently, I think on his podcast, he just came out with an apology to Kyrie. His apology was so disingenuous. He basically didn't even apologize. He talked about how Kenny Smith called him up. Kenny Smith. Shout out to Kenny Smith and Vincent Smith, Queens legends, Aim High, Lost Battalion, Rego Park, Left Rack, all that. But you know what I mean? He talked about Kenny Smith called him up and basically told him, yo, chill out, bro. You got to back up off Kyrie. You know what I'm saying? Kyrie talked about getting problems with his father, and there was a couple of mutual friends that they had in common. And Stephen A. basically said, you know what? I went a little bit too hard on him. Kenny Smith made me realize that. But that only came after Perk had apologized the other day on national television. Was like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, I owe Kyrie an apology. And everybody want to give Kyrie an apology right now because he's balling. You know what I'm saying? And he's doing his thing. And we'll get into the NBA Finals. We'll get into that next episode. You know what I'm saying? We're not really talking NBA Finals right now, even though the games, I don't want to get to that. But long story short, Stephen A. Smith, we don't fuck with you. This is new media. We don't care. You got Shannon with you. Don't talk about my brother this, my brother that. You know what I'm saying? As a black man, in front of the whole world, you sold us out. So